In the 2026 WNBA season, the league's historic 30th year, a Croatian guard named Nika Mühl is coming back to the court, and Caitlin Clark is the first person on her schedule. Now, most of you know Caitlin Clark. You've watched her light up arenas the way players only come along once a generation, the way Magic Johnson lit up the Forum in the 1980s, the way Cheryl Swoops lit up the early WNBA, the way players who change a league look when they're doing it in real time. But here's something most fans don't know. Before Clark became the face of women's basketball, she came within a hair of losing a national statistical title to a girl from Zagreb, Croatia, who most Americans had never heard of. In the 2022-23 college season, that Croatian guard led the entire country in assists for most of the year, averaging 8.7 per game, while playing the kind of relentless, suffocating defense that reminded old-school basketball fans of players like Dennis Rodman or early Gary Payton when the Sonics were winning. The kind of player you don't want on the court if you're trying to run anything clean. Caitlin Clark at Iowa was averaging 8.9 assists per game. The gap was 0.2 of a single assist. Over the course of a season, that's the difference of one extra pass every 5 games. Clark finished first, Mühl finished second, and the basketball world moved on. Nika Mühl never moved on. In the 2026 WNBA season, she's back, after tearing her ACL, after tearing her ankle, after 16 months of fighting her way back across Europe. And Clark's Indiana Fever are on the Seattle Storm schedule 3 times. Let me tell you what kind of player she is before we get into the comeback story, because the two things together are what make this worth watching. Mühl is 6 feet tall. She was twice named Defensive Player of the Year in the Big East Conference. She averaged 2.2 steals per game in her peak season at UConn. Over her entire college career, she recorded 187 steals, and she holds UConn's all-time assists record, 686 career assists, at a program that produced Sue Bird, Diana Taurasi, and Breanna Stewart, players whose careers your audience knows well. In the 2022-2023 season, she broke Sue Bird's 2002 single-season assists record, 284 in 1 year, surpassing the 236 that Bird had set 2 decades earlier. That record had stood for 21 years. Mühl shattered it without anyone outside of college basketball noticing. When she was asked after her WNBA rookie season what she liked about the professional game, she didn't talk about the arenas or the travel or the visibility. She said, "Very physical and much more contact is allowed," which I like. That is not the answer of someone who is afraid of anything. That is the answer of a player who was built for exactly this. To understand Nika Mühl, you have to start in Zagreb, Croatia. She was born in April 2001 to 2 parents who both played the game professionally. Basketball was the family language long before Nika was old enough to hold a ball. There's a type of player that older basketball fans recognize immediately. The player who makes everything difficult, who makes you earn every step, every pass, every shot. Gary Payton in Seattle in the 90s, Dennis Rodman in Detroit before he won rings in Chicago. Players who didn't lead in scoring but who changed the temperature of a game just by showing up. That is the archetype Nika Mühl fits. She was built to make someone's night miserable, and she found out early that she was very good at it. By the time she was a teenager in Croatia, Sopron Basket, one of Europe's elite clubs, a team that had won EuroLeague titles, invited her for a week-long trial. They wanted to sign her. She was 16 years old and good enough to play for them that same year. She chose differently. She decided she wanted college basketball. Several programs came recruiting: Oregon, Ohio State, Louisville. But Gino Auriemma, the most decorated women's basketball coach in history, got on a plane and flew from Connecticut to Zagreb, Croatia to see her personally. He sat with her family. He watched her play. Mühl said later that his visit was the deciding factor. He was the first one to visit. He made me think that he really cared and that he really wanted me there. She signed with UConn in November 2019, and within 3 years, she'd break records that Sue Bird had held since 2002. At UConn, Mühl became the best defensive guard in the country, twice, back-to-back Big East Defensive Player of the Year. She led the conference in steals. She was the kind of player Gino Auriemma calls his most important defensive piece. The kind who makes the scorebook misleading because you can't count the passes she deflected, the drives she redirected, the shooters she wore down over 40 minutes. But in the 2022-23 season, she did something nobody expected from a defensive specialist. She broke Sue Bird's single-season assists record. Bird had set the mark at 236 in 2002, a record that stood for 21 years at one of the most decorated programs in women's basketball history. Mühl finished the season with 284 assists. Not close. Not a one-pass difference. She obliterated it. And while she was doing that, she was running neck and neck with Caitlin Clark in the national assists race. Clark at Iowa, 8.9 assists per game. Mühl at UConn, 8.7 assists per game. 0.2 of a pass separating the top 2 assist leaders in women's college basketball. One of them at the program that produces WNBA Hall of Famers as a matter of routine. The other at the program that was producing the biggest star in women's sports history. In the final week of the regular season, Clark edged Mühl out by that margin. 0.2, one extra assist across 5 games. Mühl didn't say anything about it publicly. She finished her career with 686 total assists, more than Sue Bird, more than Diana Taurasi, more than any player in UConn history. She was a Nancy Lieberman Award candidate as one of the top point guards in the country. And then she entered the 2024 WNBA draft, was selected 14th overall in the second round by the Seattle Storm, and made the final roster. A genuine accomplishment for a second-round pick competing against veterans for a spot. The 2024 WNBA season didn't go as planned. Mühl played 16 games, averaging under 4 minutes a contest. She was learning the system, working her way up, waiting for her opportunity. She didn't score her first professional points until the final game of the regular season. After Seattle's season ended, she did what almost every young WNBA player does. She went overseas to stay sharp. She signed with Beşiktaş JK of the Turkish KBSL, the Women's Basketball Super League, one of the most competitive women's leagues in the world. European basketball in the fall has been the proving ground for American and international players for decades. It's where players get real minutes to develop their games and come back to the WNBA ready to contribute. In her very first game for Beşiktaş, against rival Fenerbahçe, she played 28 minutes and posted 11 points and 9 assists. She looked exactly like the player she was supposed to become. Then, in the third quarter, she went up for a rebound, came down wrong, and collapsed. A CL meniscus, both. She was helped off the court in the 79-63 loss to Fenerbahçe, and the severity was immediately clear. Surgery came November 1, 2024. The Seattle Storm placed her on the suspended list. Nika Mühl, who had just played a total of 57 minutes of professional basketball, was going to spend the next year fighting to walk properly again, let alone play. Here's what she did instead of feeling sorry for herself. She rehabbed, she posted updates, she stayed connected, and in July 2025 she signed with Sopron Basket of the Hungarian Nemzeti Bajnokság, the same club that had wanted to sign her as a teenager. Full circle. In September 2025, 355 days after her last competitive game, she played 10 minutes for Sopron in Budapest. That night on Instagram she wrote, "Played my first 10 minutes after 355 days. That was all. No drama, just getting back to work." The return was going better than expected. Mühl started all her games for Sopron. She was leading the team in assists in EuroLeague play, a competition that features WNBA talent from across the world. Her shooting numbers were strong. She looked healthy. Then the Croatian national team called. Their first Eurobasket qualifier was against Greece, and Mühl was their best player. She accepted without hesitation. On November 12, 2025, she scored 21 points, hit 4 of 5 three-pointers, and dished 7 assists in a 76-73 Croatia win. Her best performance since the ACL. Late in that game, she went down again. Ankle, torn ligament. The weeks of recovery stretched into months. She disappeared from the Sopron roster. Fans who had been following her comeback started to wonder. There was nothing official, nothing public, just silence from Hungary. If you've ever watched someone fight back from something only to have it knocked down again, you know this moment. Anyone who has followed sports long enough has seen what setbacks like this do to players. Some come back harder, some don't come back at all. On February 7, 2026, Nika Mühl played again. 11 points, 2 assists, 21 minutes on the court for Sopron. 16 months after tearing her ACL in Istanbul. 3 months after tearing her ankle in Zagreb. Back on the court, back leading in assists, back doing exactly what she was born to do. The 2026 WNBA season starts May 8th. The Seattle Storm host the Indiana Fever on July 28th. The Fever travel to Indiana on May 17th and July 17th as well. 3 chances for Mühl to share a court with Caitlin Clark, the same Caitlin Clark who edged her in that assists race by 0.2 per game 3 years ago. Let's talk about what Nika Mühl actually does to opponents, because it's the part of this story that hasn't gotten enough attention. Think about the great defensive specialists this game has produced. Gary Payton won Defensive Player of the Year in Seattle in 1996. Dennis Rodman turned defense into an art form over his entire career. In the women's game, players like Teresa Weatherspoon in the early WNBA years and Tamika Catchings later built reputations on making opponents uncomfortable for 40 minutes. The pest, the shadow, the player who wears you down and makes you wish you'd picked a different night to play. That is the archetype Nika Mühl fills in 2026. She is 6 feet tall, the same height as Caitlin Clark. She moves her feet well enough to stay in front of guards who are faster and quicker. She disrupts passing lanes without fouling because she reads the offense early before the pass is even thrown. Her wingspan creates problems at angles most defenders can't cover. And she has the kind of motor that coaches describe in one of 2 ways. They love it or they hate playing against it. Noelle Quinn, her head coach in Seattle, put it plainly during Mühl's rookie year. She plays with a lot of pride and she's competitive. We saw a lot of times during the season it wasn't always great for her, and there's something to say about a player who sticks with it and shows up. That was about a player getting 4 minutes a game in her first professional season. What does that same player look like now? 24 years old, hardened by 16 months of injuries and comebacks. Having played EuroLeague basketball and Eurobasket qualifying and Hungarian League games just to stay sharp? Having fought back from the kind of injuries that end careers? Clark's first test against Mühl in the 2026 WNBA season comes May 17th in Indiana, then July 17th again in Indiana, then July 28th at Climate Pledge Arena in Seattle, where the Storm faithful will be watching to see what their Croatian guard can do when it matters. Caitlin Clark will be ready. She's always ready. The question is whether she's ready for this particular opponent. The one who pushed her to the limit in a national statistics race, lost by 0.2 of an assist, and spent the next 3 years becoming a harder, more dangerous version of herself. Nika Mühl is not the most famous player in the WNBA. She's not the highest scorer, the biggest name, or the player with the most endorsement deals. She's the player who tore her ACL in Istanbul, came back, and tore her ankle in Zagreb, and then came back again in February 2026 at Sopron in Budapest, and kept showing up. She learned the game from 2 parents who both played it professionally. She chose American college basketball over a European contract at 16. She broke records at UConn that Sue Bird had held for 21 years. She played through a system that barely gave her minutes in her rookie season and kept working. And then she did all of it again, after a year on the injured list. Some players have talent, some players have character. The ones who become unforgettable usually have both. In the 2026 WNBA season, Nika Mühl is coming home to the Seattle Storm. She has 3 games against Caitlin Clark on the calendar. And if you're a fan of this league, whether you came to it last year because of Clark, or whether you've been watching since Teresa Weatherspoon was playing for the Liberty in 1997, you should pay attention to what happens when those 2 share a court. The assistant race rematch is 3 years in the making. May 17th is the first chapter. Drop a comment below. Do you think Nika Mühl can slow down Caitlin Clark in 2026? And if today is the first time you've heard her name, it won't be the last.